Hello everyone, today in this video we'll fight against the Atmos character of our world around us, and this time we will talk a little bit about current geopolitics and current trends and what will happen if these trends continue. So we see that currently many things actually are in progress, like now for instance, many OPEC countries decided to sell oil also in different currency than US dollar, like Chinese yuan or rubles, or just take their foreign trade in different currency also than American dollar. So we see that absolute hegemony of one center that was recently, let's say in Washington, if we think capital wise, is now losing ground in some regions of the world. We also see that some conflicts are already starting between re-emerging superpowers like Russia and China and some Anglo-Saxon pact or NATO, one can say. There are some proxy wars or creeping conflicts like the one in Ukraine for already some years. Recently, in 2022, it got intensified, but actually it started in 2014. Many people tend to forget about it. And we also see that there is huge rivalry in Africa between superpowers, not only Russia, China, and the US and the UK and France, but also recently even Brazil, that it's seemingly emerging superpower on the southwest part of the globe, is also excavating. The Brazilian oil giant Petrobras is also excavating oil in some locations in Western Africa. So we see that Africa seemingly will be divided between few superpowers like Brazil, China, Russia, and maybe some local powers like South Africa or maybe Ethiopia, that's currently having some conflict with Somalia or some clashes in Tigray region, but still it's quite well organized country. One needs to say, even trying to develop its own industry, trying to be as much as possible energetically independent. So it's even constructing a huge dam on the Nile to produce its own electricity. One needs to, it's controversial in terms of the Nile River performance, which is crucial for neighboring countries like Sudan and later Egypt, of course. But one needs to say that this is really bold move from the side of the Ethiopian government, because they want to be energetically as much as possible independent. And we see that in Africa another emerging power can be also Egypt. So there are many candidates, and Africa will be also playground for the Central and Eastern Europe and Southern Europe. Predictions are not so good in polycentric world, because we are now going to polycentric world, in my opinion, if these trends continue, because in European territory traditional powers, will re-emerge again. So German speaking states, let's say, and Russia. So actually countries between them will be again crushed. Some of them will be completely just taken under the military and political umbrella, like Ukraine and Belarus and Pre-Baltica, seemingly by Russia. And in Poland, Russia would like to have government that would take care of their interests. Germans, of course, will be also interested in Poland, and Czech and Hungary and Austria and Balkans together with Germany. And now we see that if it continues, seemingly the conflict between Russia and German states is unavoidable within some time. So just for smaller countries and middle countries like Poland and countries in the Central Europe, but it applies also to other regions of the world. One needs to have very smart geopolitical elite representatives that are very good and hard players, because in polycentric world one will be very much in danger of becoming uh, simply a uh, simply a object of the desire of one for one local hegemonic state, and also for the second one, and it will be easy to become object of rivalry, and this rivalry will be of course performed by any possible means, agents of influence, riots, wars, and so on and so on. So just to live good and avoid these problems, countries who would, especially smaller ones, would need to have very smart geopolitical and economical elite and very good intelligence services to know what's happening in the within the local hegemonic center of powers. I do not see such examples in, for instance, in Poland, such representatives of geopolitical elite, and I'm afraid that again the wheels of history will go through our territories like it was during First and Second World War, but also during Seven Years' War and many other conflicts that, of course, northern wars, that simply the country was, let's say, supply backyard for the fighting sides, of course, unwillingly. And we were just having losses, but other countries were simply trying to do their best to take the best position possible after the war with respect to other superpowers. So they were just doing their own interest, realizing their own interest as much as they could, but some weaker countries or not properly managed countries were simply only used as sources of supplies. And one needs to take into account that if this tendency for the world to getting more and more polycentric continues, we will be more or less in similar reality like we were in the interwar period. So there is no absolute hegemony of anybody, and everyone wants to jump into a dominant position, at least in the region. So, in contrast to this, what many people think, who are, because of reasons I don't understand, tired by current American domination, they say, yeah, a polycentric world will be better, multi-vectorial politics, trading with this one, doing this with this one, and blah 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 blah. It's not so easy. It's not so easy because the situation will change at any minute, and there will be no solid order for a longer time, because there will be always rivalry to be at least a local dominant power, and it will be done by any means. So this is naive approach. For normal people, a polycentric world, and for majority of population, this is really difficult time with severe perils for their own safety by any means. That's why we need to be prepared if it happens for difficult times, and we should really hope for really smart, especially if we live in smaller countries and middle countries, for really smart geopolitical elites that are ruling our countries and our companies, not to make our countries involved in unnecessary conflict, and not to make our countries tools in the hands of stronger countries and corporations. This is not so easy. Polycentric world as interwar period, and also period before First World War, when we had such so-called great game between powers, when we had it, showed us that This is not a nice period, not so stable, and very, very problematic, full of unexpected upside downs and U-turns, unpredictable changes. So seemingly we are going to another polycentric world, and we also need to take into account last events in such countries in France, that emerging local powers in the polycentric world will have additional problems. So they will have troubles with their internal social and cultural integrity. It will also add some, let's say, spices to the complexity of the situation that may emerge, and seemingly will, if we go to the polycentric world in upcoming years. So we will live even in more interesting times. All the best, have a nice day, bye.